Alright people, brace yourselves because this season is a buffet of awesomeness so extensive I couldn't limit my excitement, or this list, to just 10 shows. Spoiler alert, I lied, but in the best way possible because we're in for a treat. First of all, let's get one thing out of the way. This season has many returning animes that I am oh so looking forward to. Since these are returning, I'll cover them much more rapidly in a as spoiler-free way as I can. So you know what these are about, why I want to watch them, and then get on with the new stuff coming out this season. There are no less than 6 returning animes I absolutely want to watch. If a supposed top 10, well, that's quite a few, right? And then add another one. I really loved the Source Material off, so down to just 3, I guess? Well, I have chosen 3 new things I want to watch, but to be fair, there are also a couple honorable mentions I'll maybe watch as well, or at least give a fair chance to. If you don't care about specific anime, you can skip it using the timestamps below. Okay, if you didn't know already, I really like isekais. I can't get enough. I enjoyed Goddamn Isekai Vending Machine, and I think the note on my anime list did my boy dirty. I mean, hey, it wasn't that bad, right? I really liked it. But hey, that's just me. But knowing this, you probably won't be too surprised at what is my most awaited anime this season. It's, by far, Eminence in the Shadows. Let me preface by saying I was absolutely blasted away by this season 1. It was absolutely great, and it instantly became a serious contender for my favorite anime, along with the likes of Overlord and Mushoku Tensei. If the season 2 is as amazing as the first, it might go as far as taking the crown. If you haven't watched it yet, here's a very brief rundown of what it is and what makes it great. In short, the MC is what makes this series truly great. He starts a teenager in Japan and gets isekai into a medieval fantastic setting where magic is actually a thing. Pretty standard stuff so far, but Sid isn't just your regular isekai hero. He's an overpowered but clueless mastermind maneuvering through chaos with the elegance of a cat on a skateboard, sprinkling courage and badassery like confetti on a birthday cake. He's trying to be this cool, badass, edgy figure that manipulates things happening from the back scene. Things go his way, but not the way you would expect, and in the process of trying to look cool, proceeds to drop the most cringiest lines you've ever heard, but you just really can't get enough. It's very well written, in a way that just makes you want to know more about him, the situations he lands himself into without even knowing, and what kind of awesome will he manage to get out of it, and the overall progression of the more and more insane overarching story he doesn't even know he's in. It's a wild, hilarious ride and you won't want to get off. Honestly, if you haven't given the season 1 a chance, do yourself a favor and go watch it. After my video, obviously. Now, the second one is Dr.Stone. I guess this one's a bit cheating since it's the part 2 of a season, but hey, it's airing now, so here we are. The basic premise is that in a modern-day Japan, some sort of green being turned everyone to stone. Thousands of years later, our hero Senku, a genius teenager, turns back to human. So it's then time to start civilization again. But guess what? Our genius knows the way of modern science and technology. Well, obviously you can't make everything easily from the nature around you. Or can you? Well, Senku certainly knows a whole lot about that, and he unpurifies more and more people, finds survivor that lives since civilization fell, and we follow what happens and his quest of understanding what actually happened, with all the tech and modern processes he make along the way. It's a very unique anime which does a lot of interesting stuff and all around is very solid and definitely worth a watch. And there are several seasons on movies already, so there's no lack of content, and absolutely certain that this continuation will be just as good as the rest was. Next up is Spy Family. I don't think you need a detailed introduction. I think it's fair to say at this point that it's fairly well known. It's a light-hearted comedic show following a made-up family all hiding their secret identities from one another. While we follow Lloyd's different super secret mission, we also follow their progress towards becoming a real family and their developing attachment to each other. All the characters are amazingly written, their dynamic always interesting, and I'm just looking to see more. The fourth one takes a drastic turn. It's Goblin Slayer. In a very sharp contrast to Spy Family lightheartedness, this one is dark, violent, and gore, and it's fucking amazing. If you like shows with a very dark tone that's not shying away from heavy themes or bloodsheds, this is for you. Goblin Slayer, which also happens to be the name of the main character, is a brutal, straight-to-the-point massacre of, well, you probably guessed it, goblins. But it's much broader than just that, but you'll have to watch it to know more. The fifth continuing anime is Dead Mount Dead Play. It was a positive little surprise for me when it came out. I didn't necessarily have a high expectation for it, but it turned out fairly interesting and intriguing. It's a bit different from the other animes, and this one is a reverse isekai where a medieval fantastic necromancer MC gets isekai'd in modern-day Japan, but brings his magic along with himself. He got to learn the modern ways of Japan, but he happens to not exactly get just any random body, but rather someone that's involved in some shadowy family, and with all the situations his predicament brings along. He makes some likely allies along the way, and with them, has to make sure he solves the weird things going on around himself, while also making sure his secret doesn't get out. Now, as an isekai fan, it might come as a bit of a surprise that this one's so far down as the 6th entry. I'm talking about Shield Hero. Well, maybe not such a surprise if you did watch Season 2 actually. To say it very mildly, Season 2 was, let's say, a roller coaster that forgot to go up. Especially considering how well received was the first one. In isolation, after Season 1, Shield Hero could have been some of my favorite animes of all time, with its story subverting the expectation you have from most isekai, having what feels like a pretty different take on the genre as a whole, but Season 2 lost most of that. On top of it, Season 2 was wildly rushed, felt poorly paced, animated, and written in its first half, with a minor improvement in the second part. So, well, why is it still on my list then? Well, from my understanding, they did think that way for an apparently good reason. They knew it was important to the overall story, so they had to adapt it into the anime. But at the same time, they knew it wasn't that good, so they kinda rushed it. That overall sounds like it maybe kinda makes sense, but it does kill a whole season, and kills the momentum carried from Season 1. Why is there even a Season 3 then? Well, one of the reasons I believe they did this way is because they knew in advance that Season 2 would be poorly received, and that's why when they were renewed for a Season 3, they were also renewed for a Season 2 at the same time. They got both seasons announced at once. They then probably already knew that they had to sacrifice a whole season, so they skimped on the least interesting part, in the hopes that perhaps that a bigger focus on the third season would bring back the viewers for a more interesting part. To be fair, I haven't looked very deeply into it, nor watched the source material, but I think this sounds like it could make sense, although it seems like a gamble on the studio's part, in the hope that they haven't completely killed the interest in the series. Considering it's by far the most awaited anime this season by quite a margin on my list, I think they'll get the chance to prove their point. Talking about source material, the next anime on this list is actually a new one, and from which I have actually read the source material of, and I fucking devoured it. I didn't expect it to like it that much, but its outstanding visual, story, and main character really kept my interest into this going, and I'm still reading the new material whenever it comes out. I'm talking about Apothecary Diaries. While it's certainly not an action-packed series, it is very charming, and from what we've seen so far in the trailers, it seems to be very close to the material as far as being able to recognize certain panels in the trailer. It was extremely pleasantly surprising to learn that they had decided to adapt this into an anime, and I feared that they wouldn't just do a good service to the content, but we won't really know until it's out. But from what we can tell from the glimpses we got, it seems to have done a good job adapting it. What is it about then? Well, in ancient China, Mao Mao, our protagonist, is a young girl that's been forced to serve in the imperial court as a servant. But her sharp mind and knowledge in medicine and poison makes her able to quickly solve a case where some of the emperor's concubines and their infants fell ill. This grabs the attention of a court official, Jinshi, who brings her into his fold, and she is then called to solve a lot of medical mysteries in the imperial court. Mao Mao is the MC and is a bit odd, special, and is overall very interesting character, and the cases brought forth to her make an overall very endearing package served with a little bow tie on top with Jinshi, and the dynamic between them, and the overarching imperial court politicking between the various characters. Before I get any further, I just want to make a quick mention. For this video, I don't count continuing animes from previous season, namely Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 or Zom 100, or small OVAs like Slime, nor movies like the upcoming Spy Family. Now that this is out of the way, let's go with the first one I actually had to look at the trailer for before I decided to watch it. Because yes, all the previous one I mentioned, the 7 one of them, it was granted that I'd watch all of them without any further thought. Obviously, I did watch your trailers and all, but I'd have watched them anyway. But the next 3 ones, well, I had to make a choice for this list, didn't I? But that first new entry on the list is Undead Unluck. The concept sounds a bit wild, and that's what got my interest. A girl who is basically a walking Final Destination scene to everyone she touches, bringing death all around her. When she's finally ready to end things, a man touches her, not like that, only to immediately fall in front of the train she herself was going to. But that man is not dead. Well, not quite really. And his body is being rebuilt right in front of her, so it's obvious that the man seems to be unable to die. So this unlikely pair decides to work together, trying to change the world's rule and undoing their misery. The anime seems to be fairly action-packed, and even though it might touch every subject, seems to have a lighter tone, and be presenting itself in a more comedic duo fashion with plenty of unlikely events befalling them. If the humor and situation lands well, I feel like this one might be quite entertaining to watch, and they'll go on to fight more and more powerful enemies, bringing destruction along them. Next comes an MC that starts very weak, gets bullied, vows to get stronger, and then becomes super powerful. What do you mean? Too generic? Yeah, okay, maybe it is. I'm talking about Berserk of Glutonny. Now, as to basic premises, it's as generic as it gets, but as for what we've seen from the trailers, guy gets stronger as he kills more enemies by absorbing their souls. It's not entirely clear where this anime will land on the scale of holy shit, that packed my lunchbox in Made in Abyss, to Kirito's always doing the right thing no matter what. The character needs to kill to feed and grow his power, which can lay the path to a pretty dark story indeed. But depending on how it's presented, a morally great character that's not shying away from brutal executions to get things done, or the power of love and friendship always win kind of situation. I like nuanced characters and dark and gritty world, so I hope there's some amount of that, given that the premise of the show is very conducive to it. Lastly, there's Kingdoms of Ruin. As I just mentioned, I like dark-toned anime, and this one, well, is very promising in that regard. It seems to be essentially a revenge fantasy. Its setting is a blend of modern and futuristic world that was once run by magic, but where now technology has overtaken magic, and all the remaining witches, whom have the remainder of the magic, have mostly been hunted down and wiped out. Our MC is an apprentice of such a witch and vows revenge on all those who have wronged them, and embarks on a journey to fight back against an empire, and seems to have very little moral qualms about massacring the whole of these people. I'm fully expecting a revenge and power fantasy with a lot of bloodshed, and I'm all here for it. Well, it's been 10 animes, but I did tell you, I lied. There's an 11th one I want to mention. Of this season most awaited anime that still wasn't on my list so far is Freerun. To be honest, it's not typically my cup of tea, but it seemed to be well awaited and people expect it to be pretty good. So it deserves at least a sip to see if I happen to enjoy it. Although with this season packed with things I'm already sure I'll enjoy, this one might take a little bit more of a backseat to others. As much as I like watching anime, it's pretty hard to watch and follow a dozen or so at once. Did I say a dozen? Well, yes! While I won't go into details about those, I'll just throw them out there anyway. While I might decide I won't watch all of them, I will still give them a fair chance and watch a couple of episodes to decide whether or not I will stick with them. So honorable mention goes to My Daughter Left the Nest and Returned an S-rank adventurer, The Vexations of a Shut-in Vampire Princess, Shangri-La Frontier, and Ragnar Crimson. That's like what, 15 of them in total? It feels like my next couple of weeks are booked, anime content wise. So with 15 potential hits, my schedule is looking full of anime goodness. Will they all be home runs? Given my track record considering my previous video like this? No, let's not talk about it. But here's to hoping this season is more it and less miss. I'm planning to do more of this kind of content in the future, so if you like this, please consider leaving a like and a subscribe. Thank you so much for staying until the end of the video, and I'll see you next time. See ya!